What's up, everyone? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith. He is Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How you feeling today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mr. Smith?
Good. I know you're a little disheveled, but you're ready. We're starting a little bit late. It's not. Rob was running back and forth from the studio to home, but also I was just on with Piers Morgan, and it ran a little bit late. So apologize for a little bit of a late start. For those of you guys who subscribe over at partoftheproblem.com, who are used to getting the show live, we do appreciate your support. And we're here. Better
any
20
good
minutes
Pierce,
late.
Chaos?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was easy fucking work. I mean, it was a fun one, I guess. I mean, it's just too. What's his name? I'm blanking on the guy's name. Jonathan something. He was a spokesman for the IDF. So he's, and you know what ends up happening, man? It's like, it's this weird thing because Piers Morgan. So Piers has been bringing me on his show for I don't know how long now. I think a couple years. I do it pretty regularly, and it's been, it's a great show. For all the things people trash Piers Morgan's show, and sometimes he will have shit shows where it's easy to call him the Jerry Springer of politics or whatever. But honestly, like, the show's been a very important show, and it's had at this point like some really, I think it's probably moved the needle as much as any show, because it may not be it's up there with like the biggest shows, like it gets big views, but there's just like so many episodes of it. So I've done it so many times that, and he likes having me on to debate the Israel stuff, which I'm happy to do. And it's this very weird feeling where, of course, because I've been doing so many of these debates over the last 2 years, it feels like it's kind of like a sick dynamic. But like, so for example, the one with this one, I don't know if you saw this, Rob, because it's almost like impossible to keep up with this shit because it's just every day there's a new thing. But so on Friday, the UN's Committee on Torture released this scathing report about the Israeli torture sites, and basically they've just been, just torturing Palestinians to death more than usual over the last 2 years. And then it's like, so that comes out Friday, then Monday I'm in a debate. And you're almost like, oh my God, it's almost like the news is always just handing me more and more for my arsenal. And I already have the debate won. Like none of these guys have anything to say. And then there's just more, but there's almost like this weird, sick dynamic where it's like, oh, you get handed like another great example to go win your debate, but it's at this awful human cost. Anyway, so I'm debating this guy. He's an Israeli who was a spokesman for the IDF for many years. And, he was, I guess, not like the worst debate opponent. Like he conceded a few things. Like it started with Piers asking if he would concede that it was kind of indefensible that Netanyahu was asking for a pardon. You know what I mean? Like, it's like and Piers had a great line on it where he was just like, he goes, you're like using an abuse of power to demand for a pardon because you're on trial for abuse of power. Like, it's just kind of, and the guy did go, yeah, okay, I can't really defend that. So like, all right, I'll give him that. But then at one point in the debate, and this is a thing that me and you have talked a lot about this, both on the show and privately, that they do this thing. It's the thing Noam from the Comedy Cellar does like all the time, where he doesn't just enter the conversation as like an equal with you. Like me and you are here, we have a difference of views. He kind of puts himself in the perch of like, I'm the judge of everybody. And you're like, yeah, but nobody actually puts you there. Like, but so at one point he goes to me, this is the IDF spokesman guy. And I had gone off on a rant about a few different things. And he goes, the one part of what you said that I think is reasonable to have a debate about is the U.S. support for Israel. He goes, that question I actually respect. The rest I don't. And I just went, no one cares what you respect. You're a spokesman for a terrorist organization. Like he seemed, and then he just like almost, I don't know. He had this response to me. I'm interested for you guys to watch it, but he just went off for like 30 seconds. And I said, you might as well, you just said nothing. I went, you might as well have just been quiet for 30 seconds. Because he just, when I said you're a spokesman for a terrorist organization, he was like, you sit in your comfortable office in New York City while we're out in the fight or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you're my welfare country. Shut up, dude. Like, I don't know. So it had some fun moments in it. But like, again, the guy's just got nothing. He's got nothing of substance. And then at the end, he resorted to just being like, the reason everyone's mad at Israel is because of anti-Semitism. Like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Well, they brought up, Pierce did bring up the, they did that like Stop Anti-Semitism group does their, every year, I guess they do their anti-Semite of the
Tucker
year.
Was nominated this year. He was on the
Tucker
top
got
left
in.
corner.
Yeah, I have never been nominated. Which seems crazy. Although,
How much do you have to do? You put your work in this past year. Who criticized Israel more than you?
Well, I got to say, Fuentes didn't get nominated either. And that did, in a weird way, like, I don't know, it's so weird. It was like, you know, like if you were up for an Oscar, but there was like an amazing movie that didn't get nominated, you're like, I guess the whole thing's bullshit.
It'd be hilarious
I mean,
if Fuentes was nominated and then did an award ceremony for himself to receive the award.
that'd be pretty funny. Well, it is, I don't know, man. It's wild. So yeah, I saw it. So Pierce pulls it up, and I was curious if the guy could even defend it because he had just been talking about anti-Semitism. He couldn't. He didn't even try to. But we all just said on there, like, first of all, there's 3 people on it who I know, like personally know. So there's Tucker Carlson, Cenk Uygur, and Anna Kasparian. The idea that any of them are Jew haters is just ridiculous. It's just like you could only. I don't know, in the same way that Larry Ellison was the blackface of white supremacy or something like that. Like only by the wokest definition of bigotry could you accuse any of those 3. I've never said anything about the Jews. They're just, their criticism was about Israel, the Israel lobby, and wars of aggression. You know, and then they actually put Miss Rachel on there, Rob. Like, it is amazing how bad these people are at the PR game. Like that they don't even go, maybe we shouldn't be seen as viciously attacking Miss Rachel for the crime. Like the lady who sings songs for 3-year-olds. She's a Jew hater, Rob, for committing the crime of going, I sure do feel bad for these Palestinian 3-year-olds. That's what she's guilty of doing. And she goes, man, you know, I think I make, you know, little kid programming because I really love little children. And I think the Palestinian little children count just as much as all the rest of the children. So they put her on a Jew hater, like just imagine. I mean, like, forget even how you feel about the war, just like how to win friends and influence people shit here, Rob. Imagine thinking the move is to viciously attack that lady.
Well, I heard that Miss Rachel got the wrong Holocaust training, and so she doesn't realize how anti-Semitic it is to attack Israel when they're killing kids.
Yes, that's right. The Holocaust training might have messed her up. The list was hilarious. The other 2 people who I just knew on the list were Bryce Mitchell.
Okay, he said some crazy shit.
Yeah, but
I don't know that he's a noteworthy enough individual, or nor is he taking actions against Jews.
Contender. Yes, there's a contender in the lightweight division of the UFC who said some wild shit.
I also think he thinks the Earth is flat. So
yes, he's been big on the Earth is flat. By the way, and I don't know Bryce Mitchell. I've never met him, but for everything I've ever seen of Bryce Mitchell, he seems like a good dude who gets a little kooky with some of his theories or whatever. And he doesn't seem like a vicious like hater or something, but whatever. And then there was another guy, the guy's name is Guy. I'm blanking on his last name, but he's like, from what I know, I think he's like he's like a 20-year-old streamer or something like that. Who's a real lefty. I know I had one interaction with him ever on Twitter where he like tweeted something at me and he was like, Dave, you're so good on the Israel issue, but you really got to take another look at socialism. And then I just wrote back, no, just with like an N and then as many O's as they would let me put in. But you know, like I do remember, the only reason I remember it stuck in my mind because I was almost like, oh, maybe I should, you know, like there's something just about like if there's like a streamer or someone who's like in their 20s who's into socialism but is like good on war and appreciates that I'm good on war, that does make me kind of want to talk to that person. So I remember just like almost like making a note in my head, like, I'd love to talk to this kid because like he thinks I need to look into more socialism, but actually, young man, like you're a guy in your 20s talking to a guy in your 40s who's looked into it more than any of you have. And like, no, actually, you need to look into the other side of it. But like almost like as always with a 20-something-year-old, always like in a friendly way, I'd want to be like, well, look, dude, there's other ideas you haven't considered. But so I don't know anything else about the kid, but like you already know he's just anti-Israel and not actually like a Jew hater. Like it's anyway, it is too goddamn ridiculous. It's amazing. Like watching, I do feel like there are these waves, and perhaps this is somewhat me forcing things into my worldview, but I don't think so. But like it was like during the rise of Trump and like the rise of crazy wokeism, and then during COVID, and then like there would just be these things where you remember we would look around and go like, why is everyone insisting on humiliating themselves? Like it does just seem like a ritual almost at the end of the day. Like you're all just publicly human. And at this point, the Zionists are so there. I mean, they've been engaged in it for years now. Very strange. Very strange. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is The Wellness Company. And The Wellness Company is running their Cyber Monday sale. It's live for 48 hours only. It's your once-a-year chance to outsmart Big Pharma and stock up on doctor-formulated wellness at great prices. Save up to 25% site-wide, including 20% off all emergency kits and memberships. It's the perfect time for holiday shopping and gifting health to the people you care for most. The Wellness Company only drops deals this deep once a year. Give your body the regimen it needs to maintain optimal health as you complete another grateful year of life while sliding into 2026, ready to be even better. Stay prepared with emergency kits, stock your cabinets with premium nutraceuticals, and check out their memberships as you plan for 2026. The Wellness Company has everything you need to cyber shop your way to healthy habits, so definitely make sure to check this out. The sale ends Tuesday night, December 2nd, so head to twc.health/problem for serious Cyber Monday savings. Discounts automatically apply at checkout. That's twc.health/problem. Sale ends Tuesday night, December the 2nd. All right, let's get back into the show. And speaking of, I wanted to play this up top, Rob, because I just thought this was too.
Do we know, by the way, do they bracket it?
Sorry.
Like, is it like the Sweet 16 where, they go head to head and then we end up with the champion anti-Semite? How does
I don't know who's verifying these elections or like who's overseeing them, what the criteria is. We should demand transparency in this process. Also, they left Candace off. They left Candace off this year, and she's on the #1 podcast. She's putting in work. No, but I did want to say on the theme of public figures and politicians humiliating themselves, man. This administration, it is just so the timing of this, Rob, could not be better, right? And I do believe, if I've got this right, I think that this interview actually happened like the day before. But I don't know if you saw, there was this New York Post really damning expose on Kash Patel's FBI, which look. You know how it is, Rob, with these type of reports where you're getting, insider information, often anonymous sources. You never know exactly how much credit to give it. The New York Post is not exactly a hostile paper toward the Trump administration. You know what I mean? It's not like, this is MSNBC whose goal is clearly to make Donald Trump look bad. But the picture they paint is something that does seem to be, like just a really incompetent administration. And that Kash Patel, I don't know, did you see the thing about how he was waiting for an FBI jacket in Utah? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't
explain it. Just explain it if you want to comment on it so people know who haven't seen it.
So full transparency, I don't know that I fully absorbed the whole article, but I was cracking up over the jacket incident, which was essentially after the Charlie Kirk shooting, I believe it was. They take a plane out there, and he refuses to get off the plane until someone gives him one of those FBI Ray jackets because he wants to look cool, and it needs to be in the right size. It needs to be a medium. And they find him the jacket, and he refuses it because it doesn't also have, like, the side sleeves, so they make him...
And it was a ladies' jacket, evidently. They got it. Yeah. It had to be a medium, so they got it off one of their ladies.
and so they had to go get him the side sleeves. And I actually wondered if I was doing life wrong, because I hear about a guy nervous about his jacket, and I'm like, how gay is this, dude? Just go do the job. Like, do you really? Is it? You know what I mean? That almost sounds like what was the Pinky, whatever. My references are off this morning. That sounds like Inspector Clouseau type shit, where you can't do your job unless you've got the right outfit for the cameras. I just thought that it was so cartoonish that this hard-ass FBI guy refuses because he knows he's going to be in front of television cameras and has to make sure that he has his look right. And just speaks to the extent that this is all just television to these people.
Well, yes, it speaks to the theater of it all, and it's also just a hilarious, like story that's very unflattering for Kash Patel. But there was also just like damning quotes in there about people who are like, this guy is really just like over his head, and that the whole department is just like being, mismanaged.
Someone should just do a sketch of him yelling at his makeup crew. Just like Kash behind the scenes being followed around, powdered and lipstick, and I gotta look more like an American, bro. Gotta make me look more American.
Well, I mean, the thing is that the Trump administration, starting with Donald Trump, right? It comes all the way down from the top, and everybody knew this going into Donald Trump's first presidential campaign, but Donald Trump is the only president in the history of the United States of America, which is like, okay, not the oldest country in the world, but actually a pretty old country given, if you want to consider that it's under the same current system, which it's not really. There's been several revolutions. We never admitted it. But the United States of America in its entire history never had a president who had no political or military experience. That's just never happened, right? Like George Washington, the first president, was a general in the army, and all the way down, everybody had at least political or military experience, right? Like I think Dwight D. Eisenhower had no political experience, but he was a 5-star general who led the Allies to victory in World War II. So like, okay, that's a pretty big deal. And Donald Trump's the first one ever who had none of that. Now, this was something that they tried to knock him with in 2016. But the reason why that was completely ineffective is because Donald Trump was like, well, yeah, but I'm here to drain the whole swamp. You guys are all incompetent criminals, and so you all have the experience. And look, Hillary Clinton's had 30 years of experience. And what has she done in those 30 years? Nothing good. So what do you want? I'm a rich guy. I know how to run a company, and I don't need any of your money. So I'm outside of this system, and I'm here to drain the swamp. And so that was more than a good enough pitch to overcome. Like in the same sense, right, that someone like Douglas Murray could look at me and say, you're just a comedian who doesn't have like real experience. You don't have fancy degrees, and you haven't been on, IDF embedded tours or whatever. And like, there is like, it's not that there's nothing reasonable to that. Like, yes, it is kind of ridiculous that this falls to me to be the one to go. Yes, it's kind of crazy that the comedian from Legion of Skanks is the one here doing it. But the fact is, Douglas Murray, you've been wrong about the last 7 major crises, and I've been right about them. And so you know what? Yeah, I'm actually here beating you now. However, the thing with Donald Trump is that what covered that up was I'm here to drain the swamp. But he's not. He's not even here to drain the swamp. And so what you just get is the incompetence without any of the good part. Like, and so this is, again, essentially, this is what we're seeing from the Justice Department, the FBI, the entire Trump administration. We liked the fact that you brought in outsiders like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Bobby Kennedy or any of this. Because like, hey, if we're doing this to drain the swamp, if we're doing this to hold the COVID criminals accountable, hold the Russiagate criminals accountable, hold the Epstein criminals accountable, then fuck experience. Let's get some outsiders in there and give that a shot. But once we're not doing any of that, now you just get the inexperience. And so it's like a microcosm of the entire Trump administration. But dude, Rob, this video I just found so in the middle of all of this, right? As this expose, again, it might have been the day before it was put out, but as this piece is being run in the Post, and as Trump's approval ratings are crashing, and as this Justice Department is just viewed as more and more of a joke, Dan Bongino takes to the air to give his defense of Kash Patel and Donald Trump's FBI. And it is to be seen to be believed. Let's watch it.
I mean, I gave up everything for this. I mean, you know, my wife is struggling. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey. It's fine. I did this and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Kash is there all day. We share it. Our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet. I hear it. He's there he gets in at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night. You know, I'm in there at 7:30 in the morning. He uses the gym. I work out in my apartment, but I stare at these four walls all day in DC, you know, by myself, divorced from my wife, not divorced, but I mean, separated, divorced. And it's hard. I mean, you know, we love each other and it's hard to be apart.
But you're doing some great work. You're straightening out the FBI, you're moving buildings. There's a lot of change.
I got one more thing. I mean, I gave up everything for this. I mean,
okay, all right, Rob, give me a second on this one. Shit. Dude, I apologize. I walk back all my criticism of this FBI. I mean, I was really mad that you guys were covering up for pedophiles. But I was just assuming you slept till noon. But now that I find out that Dan Bongino is getting to work at 7:30, Rob, not 7:45, 7:30. And get this, he doesn't get to bring his wife with him. She does not get to go with him to his job, which he's got to be at, Rob. Let me remind you one more time, 7:30 in the morning. Yeah, this guy wakes up in the morning, Rob, and he goes to a room where he's got to work all day. Kash Patel is putting in full days of work every day. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Rob, that sounds a lot like being an adult. That just sounds like you're describing what every single adult with a job does, is that they divorce their wife. Dude, he used the word divorced and then corrected him and then used the word separated. And what he meant to say was that his wife doesn't come to work with him. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Rob, when I travel the country, I'm away from my wife quite a bit. I don't even have her in here with me right now. We're divorced from each other right now. She's up 2 floors above me right now. Separated, literally. We're separated by a floor, at least. Floor and a half. I mean, dude, just imagine this ever comes out of your mouth, Rob. I mean, like, you're sitting there and you're defending your own FBI. By the way, think about it. You already know you're in trouble when you're defending the Trump Justice Department on Fox and Friends, right? Like, you're not on Fox and Friends to take victory laps and talk about how great everything is. The best the host can do is go, "Hi, you guys are moving buildings, you're doing things. Yeah, big things are happening." It's a completely friendly show. Everyone's there to just try to get you over. The audience is 75-year-old Republican. They just want to support whatever the Trump administration is doing. And yet you still have to be defending yourself because everyone's recognizing you for the joke that you are. And you start by the personal sacrifice that you've had to make. And that sacrifice includes getting to work at a reasonable hour. Well, I'm sorry, is 7:30 even that early to like be at the job? Like, I guess it's a little on the early side. Like, what are we even talking about here? And then the personal struggles. I mean, I'm not a victim here. I'm not a victim, but let me talk about all the sacrifices I've made. Dude, what are the fucking results? Like, it's just so insane. You guys ran on fucking releasing the Epstein files, then pivoted to there's no such thing, then pivoted back to releasing them, and you just did. You got caught lying 6 different times in this whole thing. And then you said that Dan Bongino, you've been on a 4-year-long podcast tour talking about fucking Russiagate and all those criminals. Now you got a director of national intelligence who confirms it. You got the FBI director who also says it's true. Where are you on that? What are you doing when you go to work at 7:30 in the morning every day? All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is My Patriot Supply. This Christmas, give the gift of food security with an amazing deal from our friends at My Patriot Supply. It's called the Buy One, Gift Two Christmas Special, and you guys have got to check it out. All month long, when you buy an emergency food kit, you'll get 2 more food kits for free. you'll get 2 more food kits for free to give as gifts. That's right. Get a 4-week emergency food supply for yourself, and they'll throw in 2 one-week food kits absolutely free. The 1-week kits make perfect gifts for anyone on your list who's into preparedness and anyone who needs a little nudge in that direction. And these days, it just makes sense to have some food stored away for emergencies. And with the buy one, gift 2 Christmas deal, you're not only getting yourself prepared, you're also getting unique and meaningful Christmas gifts for your friends and families. So head over to mypatriotsupply.com/problem. This offer is only around for the holiday season. So once more, mypatriotsupply.com/problem. All right, let's get back into the show. I don't know. Go ahead, Rob. I thought it was too crazy. I thought this was an AI video when I first saw it.
Well, if you're ever thinking about running for office again, just remember it's a lot better just talking shit online. I don't think
there you go.
I don't think I've ever seen a more broken man. Just, no, I'm working hard and my wife hates me and we're separated and here's other details about my life falling apart that I shouldn't say. No, actually, it's all good. We're still together, but I have to hear Kash Patel run a sink. That guy showers in it. He's Indian. I can't listen to this anymore.
I do remember, which I know I've brought this up before, but I thought this was like an interesting moment when Tucker said to me that he said to me that he had me on the show like right after the Douglas Murray debate, and he said to me, he goes, dude, Douglas Murray just ruined his career, and I corrected him, and I went, no, he didn't. I go, Douglas Murray ruined his reputation. It's a different thing. And I know you've made this point before that it's like, look, dude, like all these guys are getting government. There's something cushy waiting for them afterward if they play ball. And so what happened is that, you know, actually from our perspective, we may think like, oh, it's kind of cushy to be like a real popular podcaster. But like, actually, there's much higher levels of cushiness, it turns out, than what me and you do. And so in a sense, right, like in the same way, Douglas Murray didn't ruin his career. Douglas Murray will have a career. And in fact, Douglas Murray will be making lots of money. I think we already know he's writing speeches for the Israeli government. I think he was getting USAID money too. I believe that got revealed at some point. He's going to have Zionists and bankers and, you know, weapons companies. They'll find something for him. He won't be respected amongst the people the way he used to, though. And you do see in some of these guys where they're still human beings. And on some level, that does irk them. It does irk Sam Harris and Douglas Murray and guys like this that like years ago, their name carried some weight amongst right-wing audiences. And now they're a laughing stock. And I think what you're getting at there is like, that's what we're watching with Dan Bongino. It's like look, it's a calculation. And to be completely fair here, it's a calculation that we do not know all of the factors in. Like part of the calculation might be, I think people I love are going to get killed if I don't do this. You know, like we don't know. Obviously, I'm just guessing. I'm just speculating, but I'm not even guessing. I'm just saying we don't know what the actual calculation is. But we do know that the calculation has been made to, through his own action, destroy his reputation. Like Dan Bongino, whatever he does next after this, it's not going to be going back to having a huge relevant podcast. It's just not. Like there's just, you just can't get in there and just do nothing but sit next to your bug-eyed FBI director as you both say, he killed himself, guys. All those cameras malfunctioned. Everything I've been saying for the last few years has been bullshit. Any follow-up? No follow-up. No follow-up questions on that. That's all I have to say is trust me. Let me add in, I'm not saying trust me, but trust me. You know, like the same way they go, I'm not saying I'm the victim, but I got to be up at 7:30 every morning and I'm away from my wife, which is really hard. It's really hard when you're in love. It's really hard. Like, I don't know. You know, there's like, the truth is, dude, that Dan Bongino, you're a fucking government employee. That's what you are. There's men all over this country who work a hell of a lot harder than you do. And they're all away from their wives. And they all got to be there at 7:30 or something like that. Like, it's an outrage that you'd look at. Dude, there's fucking right now, and up my road, there's men working on power lines right there. They've been working all day. I saw them this morning when I went to drop my kids off. They were already up there working. This was around 7:45, Rob, and I didn't look like they had just gotten there. So I think they might have been there from before 7:30, and they're going to still be working there in hours. There's people all over this country by the tens of millions who do much tougher work than you. And you're sitting here, you're the second in command at the FBI as it is failing on its mandate. And its mandate that it had from the American people. And as it's failing, you're what? You're playing the victim role, and that's what you got? That you have to go to work and you can't bring your wife with you? I mean, like, what do you want me to say? I know, like, Rob, I get this all the time because if you remember back, dude, when I first announced that I was going to support Donald Trump in this election, man, the Trump people were so happy. And like, it was in the middle of, this was like at the height of election season, and everyone's just in their election mode. And they're like, fuck yeah, Dave Smith's on board. Yes, we got this coalition. Rogan endorsed him, and Rogan's guys are endorsing him, and we got this whole thing. And I see some of these guys now, they'll be giving me a hard time. They'll be like, oh, Dave, you're just so much Trump hate. Like, come on, dude, like, believe in the plan or something. Or like, what do you guys want from me? What are me and Rob supposed to do here? Look at this and tell you, yeah, that was reasonable. Get off his back. I don't know, Rob. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, it really looks like you're watching a man fall apart. And the fact that the host had to smooth it over with oh, no, you got a new building. It's all great. It's wonderful. It's like when Friend shows up at the bar too drunk and they're crying, and so you just kind of brush it over. No, you're fine. New things are coming. All right, we're going to the other bar. See you later, Ted.
Yeah. No. Well, speaking of, I guess the transition here to this next story, because I do want to talk about this. I mean, I guess there's two stories here. And we should kind of address both of them, but they're on a similar topic. But I guess the through line here would be things the FBI could be doing if they actually gave a shit about draining the swamp or anything like that. But it does seem to me, look, I gave him some credit publicly for this today, and he did show some appreciation for that. So me and Alex Berenson probably not going to be going out grabbing cocktails anytime soon, but I got to give him credit where he gets it. And I try my best to always like, well, I don't know. I guess honestly, there were two moments on podcasts that I had that kind of that kind of struck a nerve with me, that had an impact on me. One was with Daryl Cooper. And this was all on it. This was on the show where Daryl Cooper said he gave like a big, like he had a thing about his Christianity and his thing about like forgiving people who you hate and forgiving people who even do like really horrible things, which is like, I will say, Rob, to me and you both Jewish, ethnically, and you were raised religious and stuff. And that is a Christian thing that is a little bit outside of my culture. Like, I'm a New York City guy. I never really like got the idea of like forgiving the people you hate. I just have much more of a like, no, fuck that guy, like attitude, like I'm a little, but there was like the way Daryl put it really did hit home with me. And there was something really beautiful about it. And it was kind of like, that just in the spirit of like, there's definitely something powerful about that Christian insight that like hating somebody else kind of corrupts you too in a weird way. And then there was Tucker Carlson had a rant, which actually, when he was on the show, which actually led to me giving Alex Berenson some credit, because he was just kind of talking about how like, hey, look, we can have lots of different views about lots of different things, but if you're just like for the country and you're kind of for the broadest America first idea, let's debate those other ideas and let's not be enemies. And he was even saying like, hey, I don't have to be enemies with you, Ben Shapiro. Like, I don't really care about Israel that much, I just want what's best for my country. If that's your cause, like whatever, like, and so I did in the spirit of that be like, hey, you know what? Despite whatever disagreements we may have had, and I still think he conducted himself in a pretty embarrassing way, Alex Berenson was really, really great on an issue when it really, really mattered. And that's more than a lot of people can say. No one can ever take that away from him. Well, I got to admit, this story that he just broke is unbelievable. And it is like, if
you're a finer Christian than I am, because I saw the headline from him. and I emailed my friend Steven, the Wonder Boy non-scientist, because there were two COVID storylines this past
Yes, yes.
week.
Well,
there was the Moderna,
that's right, and I want to get to both of them. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Explain what they are. Yeah.
and the FDA admitting to 10 related COVID deaths.
Yes.
But when I saw the Alex Berenson one, I emailed him. I was like, can you find this? Can you verify this and find it from another source? Because I don't want to read his article or quote him on the show. So you're a nicer Christian than I am, my friend. Whereas,
well, there you go.
I'm at a point now where I loved him during COVID, but I just find him suspect.
Well, look, I get that, and I'm not making any excuses for him. I mean, he obviously, I was the target of it, but he conducted himself in the manner that he did, and he's got to deal with people, feeling how they feel about that. But he is the one who broke this story, as far as I can tell. And look, like, I'll give this the caveat of, like, if someone can point out why he's wrong about this, then fine. But to be very clear here, because I did see some people who were conflating the two stories. So, right, as you said, the FDA admitted to 10 deaths, right? This is not one of those deaths. This is a separate story from that. And in fact, Alex had to point out, this is not one of those deaths. Essentially, what they found was that there was I guess, like a European database that Moderna had recorded this with, but then they had not with any of the Americans. But there was a child who died during the testing of the Moderna COVID jab, and this has been completely covered up. Now, if that is true, which it seems to be, this is an outrage of a story, man, because this means that it was, and look, people will say, and this is always true with vaccine injuries, right? You almost never have like 100% proof that the vaccine is what caused the injury. Quite often, it's the most reasonable guess. But that has nothing to do with any of this, because this was during trials. The whole point is that's what you're looking for. And if it's the case that a kid died in the Moderna trials, well, then that means that from the very beginning, when they were saying this thing is safe and effective, they knew they were full of shit and knew that it was a risk for kids way past the point where we knew that COVID was not a risk for kids at all. So it absolutely, like, destroys the whole case for prescribing these mRNA shots to children. And also, I mean, it's just like an actual child died, and it seems very likely that this was the cause of it. I mean, this is like, Rob, this is the type of thing that, as you well remember, when this was happening, we wouldn't have been able to cover this on YouTube. To make this claim would have gotten our whole channel banned. You had to speak very, like, vaguely about these things for a little while there. And in fact, you on your channel, you got in some real heat and got strikes over this type of stuff.
Not too different from this, but one of the things I definitely got a strike for was reading the Pfizer preprint or the early study, which included that there were 14 deaths in the vaccinated group versus just 13 deaths in the unvaccinated. And those were unrelated to the vaccine, but just if you were trying to point to something as being life-saving, how can there be more deaths in the group that died from it? There were also major problems with the childhood study that they, like, ended up doing a 3-shot regimen and, like, no one made it to the end. I don't remember the specifics on that. On this Moderna one, I believe the company claims, and this is from Twitter Gronk, and I got so much of COVID right, I'm a little reluctant to dive into these stories. Like, I read the Alex Berenstein thing, but it was like a quick breeze, so I can't really affirm or debunk it. I think Moderna does claim that this was unrelated to the vaccine, and they just didn't want, like, the questioning of it. But it's still not a great look if you've got a death in the camp of people who are vaccinated, and certainly speaks to the censorship that happened during that time, that no one was digging into this stuff, or the fact that they clearly pulled some shady moves so that this data wouldn't be available at the important time.
All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is the Tuttle Twins, a children's book series that I absolutely adore and give a full 100% highest possible recommendation to. I've had some sponsors that I love over the years, but there's no cause that's more dear to my heart than this. You've heard me and Rob talk about Mises and Rothbard and Hayek, but now all of their greatest works are available in children's books form in the Tuttle Twins. These books are made for kids, but honestly, an adult could spend a couple hours reading through them and walk away with a solid foundation of the core concepts. These books are incredible, and get this, they've sold over 6 million copies. Just imagine the impact that's going to have going forward. I have a ton of these books for my kids. I've enjoyed reading them since they were toddlers. They have the hard toddler books, so it's really great. The kids get into them, and of course they're introducing them to some of the most beautiful ideas that have animated this show and our whole philosophy. So go check them out at TuttleTwins.com/problem and get a deal on the magazine subscription. It's like $50, the price of a couple pizzas, for a full year of mind-molding learning for little ones in your life. And again, the website is TuttleTwins.com/problem. TUTTLE twins.com/problem. All right, let's get back into the show. Yeah, I mean, the real criminality here comes in them not reporting this, right? But look, from reading from Alex Berenson's piece here, it's a preschool-age child died of cardiorespiratory arrest after getting the booster shot of Moderna's mRNA COVID vaccine in the company's main clinical trial. So, you know, there was a lot made of these clinical trials. You have a preschool age child dying of cardiorespiratory arrest after getting the jab. I mean, look, I'm not a doctor, but that at the very least raises some serious questions. That's pretty rare that happens to a preschooler. It also, I mean, raises questions about like who the hell voluntarily experiments on their preschooler like this. I mean, I just can't, I have a preschooler. I just cannot imagine that. I really cannot, there's something kind of like Randian, is that like Ayn Rand, who was really was a brilliant philosopher, although, she was a little bit of a nut herself, but she was a brilliant and important person. But like she would speak in absolutes about these things when I don't think they exactly are. I don't think it is that black and white. She was very black and white, although she was very brilliant. But she would talk about like the like one of her central ideas was that what's the word I'm looking for? Shit, that's a bad. But her idea was that selfishness was a virtue. And that what's the word I'm looking for? Altruism was like the greatest vice. Like there's nothing worse than altruism. Now I think she kind of forced a different definition of those words in there, but there's definitely a really brilliant insight to the idea of like sacrificing for yourself or your own for someone else can be thought of as a noble thing, but when you really think about it, like true altruism can actually be very evil. So like, in other words, if I'm like if I let's say I want to do something nice for my wife, like I want to buy my wife flowers or something like that. Or you go like, okay, but that is still my wife, right? And like, I'm kind of going to benefit from her being pleased with me or her, you know what I mean? Like, so if I really wanted to be altruistic, I would just buy someone else's wife flowers. But then right away, don't you see that? And you go, yeah, but that's kind of actually kind of wrong. Like before you got your own wife flowers, you're getting someone else's wife flowers, or like protecting someone else's kids before you protected your own kids. But anyway, I guess the idea of like, I'm going to experiment on my children for some greater good is like, you could tell yourself a story to make yourself feel like you're the good guy there. But I don't know, Rob, isn't that like the most evil thing you could do? Who would like, especially when they were there was no real risk to them with COVID. I can't imagine ever like increasing any risk of anything to my kids' health in service of some greater abstract idea of the common good or something like that. Very, very bizarre.
Well, people were really hook, line, and sinkered on what was going on during COVID, and I'm sure that the doctors had explained all the safety to them before that, and figured everyone was going to get it, and they were making their contribution to society, and had a lot of faith in Fauci, our government, and thought that they were getting the early access to make their child safe, which is tragic that there was so much bad information at that time.
Yeah.
That people were led to believe that they were contributing to society by not living their life and just staying in their apartments and rotting. And this would be the most extreme example of somebody going, oh, how lucky I am that I'm able to get my child vaccinated early.
Yeah. No, that's, well, it is something. And, you know, this, look, obviously, like this was our main issue for years, and it's, 5 years ago now. Well, I guess more than 5 years ago, right? That this started, and I guess it's about 5 years ago that the clinical trials began, right? Or no, I guess less than 5 years ago, but still almost 5 years ago, and while a lot of the craziness has died down, we are in a very real way living in the post-COVID world. And I think a lot of the American political landscape is still shaped by COVID. As I've said before on the show, I think that while I think it always would have been a bullshit non-argument appeal to authority, I think the fact that like the biggest knock on me over the last year has been that, you're not an expert, or you've never been, or you're just a comedian, or all this. I think that just, even though it always would have been a bullshit non-argument, I think that COVID is a big part of the reason why no one's even listening to that argument anymore. Well, you just get dismissed, like, shut up. We just went through 3 years of trust the experts, and the experts got everything wrong. Or the experts you deemed were the experts, whatever. But to your point, I do think something that, and I know you've made this point before. I know I've made this point before, but there is something where, like, in memory in general, certain things end up fading away, and then other things stay. And this is true with our conception of history too. You forget about certain parts and you remember other things. And one of the things it's like, since essentially guys like me and you won the day, and we got vindicated, and we were never the ones asking, remember there was that article afterward asking for like forgiveness or whatever, what did they say, immunity for that. Like, we're not the ones asking for that, because we'll stand by our track record through the whole thing. We won the debates. We got the things right. Others had to admit they were wrong. But like by the time I went in to debate Chris Cuomo, right? So was that in 2023? By the time I was debating him, like the entire audience, the entire internet audience already agreed that with me on COVID. Like it was, everybody was already like, yeah, lockdowns were a mistake. The vaccine is bullshit, all of that. But it does, like, people do forget, Rob, at the beginning there, it wasn't like that, man. It was not like that. People bought into the COVID hysteria across this nation in an insane way. I mean, lots of people, like, people didn't see their family members, didn't have them over for holidays, like did crazy things. And I do think the impact of COVID, one way to measure it is like how impossible it would be for them to get the whole country to buy into propaganda like that again right now. Now, I think COVID did more to shatter the propaganda apparatus than anything else. Even weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and stuff like that, even the financial crisis, nothing really shattered it like COVID, because COVID touched everybody's life. And it made such, like, the COVID propagandists made such clear declarative statements, that were all based on follow the science and 6 feet apart and masks save lives and you can't get COVID or transmit it if you get the vaccine. And it was like these clear statements, the lab leak theory is racist. All of them turned out to be wrong. Just like every last one of them. None of them can even defend them anymore. And it is amazing to have people buy into something so big, have the whole thing collapse in such a relatively short amount of time. Because like even now, as I'm talking about it, we're 5 years over, but I'm saying 2 years ago when I debated Cuomo, we were already there. It was from March of 2020 to 2022, the whole thing had fallen apart in terms of like people, like they were still going for a while with the policies, but no one was buying into it anymore. It really is something that we just lived through.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see some articles coming out, and maybe this will get some public fury to finally relitigate some of this stuff. The FDA story is not, because that's working off VAERS, which I think people assume has underreporting. But now that they're finally admitting that some people did die from the vax, it's a starting point.
All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Massa Chips. Did you know that all chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow up until the 1990s when big corporations switched over to cheap processed seed oils? Well, today you have options. Massa did something about this problem. They created a tasty and delicious tortilla chip with just 3 ingredients and no seed oils. The chips don't only avoid all the bad stuff, they taste great too. Massa is crunchier, tastier, and sturdier than other chips. And snacking on Massa chips isn't like eating regular chips. With Massa, you feel satisfied and light and energetic, and you don't have a crash or bloat or that gross sluggish feeling afterward. And as an added bonus, that beef tallow makes the chips even more satiating, so you won't find yourself uncontrollably binging and still feeling hungry afterward. So if you're ready to give Massa a try, go to massachips.com/Dave. Use the promo code Dave for 25% off your first order. That's massachips.com/Dave. Promo code Dave for 25% off. Seriously, these chips are great. They're beloved by tens of thousands of customers, and they have industry-leading health and nutrition experts like Ben Greenfeld and Gary Brecka on board. Go check them out, massachips.com/Dave. Promo code Dave for 25% off. All right, let's get back into the show. I will say one thing that I was kind of encouraged by this in a way, but I've noticed this just because, look, again, the story is what matters here. And the reason why I'm able to give Alex Berenson credit on this is because, like, at the end of the day, like I have an ego, just like everybody else, and maybe a little bit worse than most other people. And, it's something I'm aware of. And I think it's something whenever you're on shows like this, you always have to try to be aware of. But I do just care a lot more about the actual issue than I care about whatever dumb beef I have with Alex Berenson. Like, it's more what's actually the actual issue is much more important than either of our lives are. But I did find this really, really interesting because Alex Berenson's kind of been talking shit about me. I've just kind of paid attention a little bit to his Twitter account, and I'll tell you this, right? Like, there's a lot of people when they talk about kind of the new media landscape, and they'll talk about all the flaws, like there's conspiracy theorists out there, and there's audience capture, and there's clickbait or whatever, and like all those things are real, they do exist. But what I found kind of interesting is, so Alex Berenson has he's got like I think between 500 and 600,000 Twitter followers. Every time with his like Israel takes, and when he was coming at me and all this shit, he's getting like no positive interaction. Like he was getting ratioed without me even he'd post something and it would get ratioed. And then I was kind of like, oh, look, all his followers are just over him. Like he doesn't even have a base of support anymore. But this thing I saw, it's got like 60,000 likes and 2.1 million views on his tweet about this article. It's blowing up. And so like, I don't know, personally, from my perspective, I look at this and go like, oh, there actually is a pretty good incentive structure here, even in this wild west of the new media world. We're like, hey, dude, like, do good work like this. And like, it is blowing up. So like, this is a really important story. It's objectively good journalism. Fuck yeah, dude. Look at that. Maybe you should follow some of these incentives a little bit more. I mean, geez. Obviously, from my perspective, I'm saying I think the audience is largely correct about this. But anyway, to your point of hoping this story does spread, it does seem like it's at least getting some traction. And I don't know, it's like it always is with these things. are the powerful actually going to be held accountable because this story gets traction? Probably not. You know, if you have a short time horizon, otherwise known as a high time preference for justice or something like that, then you're probably not going to be thrilled with the results of this. But I see a broader trend. And I've seen this, you know, since me and you have been doing this show together, Rob. We've been podcasting together for like almost a decade now. And if you think about the level of trust in institutions over this last 10 years, I mean, like, it's evaporated. And all of these, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, you know, like all of these stories play a role in there, and then some more than others. But I just think, I do look at that and go, oh, I do think like something big is happening as a result of this. It is leading to like a mass awakening of how corrupt the regime that we've been living under is. And this is another great example of that.
Well, yeah, nothing's more in your face than having been completely compliant with COVID and realizing how much you gave for absolutely no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all had to sacrifice for COVID, you know, a lot of these other government policies, they just, you know, you blow up a wedding in Yemen. I mean, that sure does suck if you were getting married in Yemen that day, but really for the rest of us, it's an abstract idea, even those of us who are like outraged by it. But COVID, you're thinking almost everyone is at least thinking about their life and like what they had to sacrifice for COVID. It's just a different dynamic. It affected the whole country. You know, you lock down a whole country and there's going to be some ramifications for that. Imagine what a wild idea. All right, guys, we do have to wrap up. We'll go a little bit long tomorrow. I apologize, but we got a late start today. But we got to wrap up there. Thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. Robbie the Fire Bernstein, you got a couple more gigs before the end of the year, if I'm right.
That's right. Go to robbernsteincomedy.com. I got a run of shows coming up in Colorado, 2 at Steamboat and 1 in Denver. Closing out the year with Sam Tripoli. And then, of course, check out the Run Your Mouth podcast. Hopefully going to have Steven on this week and delve in and get some more of the deets on these 2 COVID storylines. So go check that out.
Absolutely. Very much. I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, come next year, January, me and Rob will be back out on the road for the whole year. We already have dates up on my website in Philadelphia, in Portland, Oregon, that is, Key West, Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, comicdavesmith.com for all those ticket links. All right. Catch you guys next time. Peace.